What does it take to be an exceptional flight instructor? Is it just about having superior flying skills? Let's delve into the essential qualities that make a flight instructor truly stand out. Being an exceptional flight instructor means far more than just being adept at piloting aircraft. It requires a complex ensemble of qualities and skills that ensure not only the efficient transmission of theoretical and practical knowledge, but also the creation of a safe and motivating learning environment for students. Think of an exceptional flight instructor as a mentor, a guide, and sometimes a friend. They shoulder the enormous responsibility of shaping future pilots, molding them not only in the technicalities of flying but also in the underlying principles of aviation, safety, and responsibility. An essential quality of a flight instructor is a profound understanding of aviation laws and regulations. A flight instructor must be familiar with relevant aviation regulations and laws for the country or region in which they operate. This includes safety regulations, pilot certifications, flight rules, and more. It's not enough to simply know these regulations. An instructor must be able to explain to their students how these regulations apply in practice. Another key quality is mastery of safety regulations. Flight instructors must be familiar with specific aviation safety regulations such as visual flight rules, VFR, or instrument flight rules, or IFR, minimum flight altitudes, aircraft separation rules, and many others. Understanding navigation regulations is also crucial. Flight instructors must be capable of explaining navigation regulations to their students, including procedures for cruise flights, flight route planning, flight restrictions in different geographic areas, and more. Familiarity with aerodrome and airport regulations is another essential quality. Flight instructors must know the specific regulations for each aerodrome or airport used for training. This includes landing and takeoff procedures, ground traffic rules, emergency procedures for airports, and more. Finally, preparedness for emergency situations is a must. Flight instructors must prepare their students for emergency situations and explain the correct procedures for managing these situations. So, being a flight instructor isn't just about being a good pilot, it's about being a mentor, a guide, and a friend to the students. The first quality of an exceptional flight instructor is having a profound understanding of aviation laws and regulations. This understanding isn't just about knowing the rules, it's about having the ability to translate these rules into practical knowledge that can be used in the cockpit. Aviation laws and regulations are the backbone of flight operations. They govern everything from the certification of pilots to the safety procedures that must be followed during a flight. As such, a flight instructor must be well-versed in these laws to ensure that their students are adequately prepared for the realities of air travel. Let's start with the basics. Every country, or in some cases regions, has its own set of aviation laws and regulations. These laws regulate the certification of pilots, the rules of flight, and many other aspects of aviation. A good flight instructor needs to understand these laws and be able to explain them to their students in a way that is easy to understand and apply in practice. For example, an instructor might need to explain the rules of flight, such as the procedures for operating an aircraft in controlled airspace or navigation rules. These regulations and procedures are essential for maintaining safety and order during flights. Flight instructors need to be prepared to explain these regulations fully to their students. Let's delve a bit deeper. There are safety regulations which might include rules for visual flight, VFR, or instrument flight rules, IFR. They may also cover the minimum altitude for flight, separation rules between aircraft, and regulations for flying in controlled or uncontrolled airspace. Then, there are navigation regulations. These rules dictate procedures for cruising flights, flight route planning, and flight restrictions in different geographic areas. It's the instructor's job to explain these regulations and show students how they apply in real-world flight scenarios. There are also specific regulations for each aerodrome or airport used for training. These might include procedures for takeoff and landing, rules for ground traffic, and emergency procedures for the airport. Explaining these regulations is crucial for maintaining safety during airport maneuvers. Lastly, there are regulations for handling emergency situations. Instructors must prepare students for emergencies and explain the correct procedures for managing these situations. This could include evacuation procedures in case of an emergency landing or communication procedures in case of technical problems during a flight. Instructors need to stress the importance of knowing and following these regulations for flight safety. In conclusion, A flight instructor's role is not just about teaching students how to fly. It's about teaching them the laws and regulations that govern flight, and showing them how to apply this knowledge in practice. A flight instructor's knowledge of aviation laws and regulations isn't just about adherence. It's about imparting this knowledge to the students and ensuring they understand its practical application. An instructor's knowledge of safety regulations is crucial for a safe flying experience. This statement goes beyond mere words. It's a fundamental truth in the world of aviation, where safety is paramount. Let's delve into the various safety regulations that instructors need to master and teach their students. To start, we have the Visual Flight Rules, or VFR. These rules govern how pilots operate aircraft in conditions clear enough to see outside the cockpit. Essentially, VFR allows pilots to fly the aircraft with visual references to the ground. Then we have Instrument Flight Rules, or IFR, which apply when conditions are not clear enough for VFR. Under IFR, pilots rely on the aircraft's instruments to navigate and control the aircraft. Both VFR and IFR are critical to know and understand, as they govern how pilots operate in different weather conditions. Next up is the concept of minimum flying altitude. This rule specifies the lowest altitude at which an aircraft can legally fly, often varying based on the aircraft's location and the phase of the flight. By understanding this regulation, instructors can teach their students how to maintain safe altitudes during their flights. Another essential safety regulation is the separation rules between aircraft. These rules dictate the minimum distance that should be maintained between two aircraft to prevent collisions. It's a crucial rule that ensures the safety of all aircraft sharing the airspace. Lastly, it's important to mention that these are just a few of the many safety regulations that instructors need to master. There are numerous others, each with its unique nuances and implications. The role of the instructor is not just to understand these rules, but also to explain them effectively to their students, making sure they understand their importance. Safety is paramount in aviation, and a flight instructor's comprehensive understanding of safety regulations is a key part of ensuring that. By mastering these safety regulations, instructors play a crucial role in fostering a culture of safety in aviation, ensuring that future pilots are well equipped to navigate the skies safely. Flying isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about understanding how to navigate the skies confidently and legally. Picture this: you're in the cockpit, the world below is a dizzying array of landscapes, and the horizon extends as far as the eye can see. But it's not just you and the open skies. There are rules to follow, paths to chart, and restrictions to consider. This is where understanding navigation regulations comes into play. Let's start off with cruise flight procedures. These are the rules that govern how an aircraft operates during the en route phase of a flight. It's about maintaining a specific altitude, speed, and course. It's about knowing when to ascend, when to descend, and how to adjust your route based on weather conditions or air traffic. Next, we have flight route planning. This involves plotting out the path your aircraft will take from departure to destination. It's a critical aspect of flight preparation and involves considering factors like weather, fuel requirements, and safety. The flight route should be planned in accordance with the regulations and restrictions of the airspace you'll be flying through. Speaking of restrictions, there are specific flight restrictions in different geographical areas that pilots must be aware of. These can include no-fly zones, controlled airspace, and temporary flight restrictions. It's the flight instructor's job to ensure students are aware of these restrictions and understand how to access and interpret this information. And finally, one of the most important aspects of navigation regulations is understanding how they apply in real-world scenarios. It's not enough to memorize the rules. Flight instructors must be able to demonstrate and explain how these regulations would apply in different situations. For example, how would you adjust your flight route in response to a sudden weather change? Or what steps would you take if you inadvertently entered a no-fly zone? Navigating the skies isn't just about knowing your directions, it's about understanding and respecting the rules of the air. Every airport or aerodrome has its own set of rules and regulations. A flight instructor must be well versed in these. Navigating the skies is just one part of a pilot's journey. Equally important is understanding the rules of the ground, particularly those specific to the airports or aerodromes where training takes place. These regulations can range from landing and takeoff procedures to ground traffic rules, and even emergency procedures. Let's start with landing and takeoff procedures. These rules are essential in maintaining order and ensuring safety during the most critical phases of flight. For instance, an instructor might need to explain the correct lineup and wait procedures or the importance of adhering to established departure routes. Next, there's the hustle and bustle of ground traffic. Just like on our roads, airports have their own rules to guide the movement of aircraft, vehicles, and personnel. Understanding these rules helps prevent runway incursions and accidents, ensuring smooth operations on the tarmac. Emergency procedures at airports are also a key area of focus. While we all hope never to face an emergency situation, being prepared is crucial. Whether it's an engine failure on takeoff or a fire on landing, instructors must be equipped to guide their students through these scenarios calmly and effectively. Furthermore, each airport or aerodrome may have its own unique regulations based on factors such as its size, its location, and the types of aircraft it caters to. Whether it's a small general aviation airport or a bustling international hub, instructors need to familiarize themselves with these specific rules and impart this knowledge to their students. In essence, the airport is a microcosm of the aviation world, and understanding its rules is a vital part of flight training. A good instructor doesn't just teach their students how to fly, they also teach them how to navigate the complexities of airport operations. Knowing the rules of the airports and aerodromes you operate in is crucial for a smooth and safe flying experience. And so, as flight instructors, it's our responsibility to ensure that our students are well versed in these rules, ready to take to the skies with confidence and competence. Emergencies can happen at any time, and being prepared is key. A flight instructor must be ready to handle any situation. As we navigate through the world of aviation training, one of the most crucial facets is learning how to deal effectively with emergencies. Regulations and procedures are in place to guide actions during these high-stress situations. They often include protocols for emergency landings, handling technical issues during flight, and more. For example, during an emergency landing, there are specific procedures to follow to ensure the safety of all on board. These can range from choosing an appropriate landing site to executing the landing itself. Similarly, handling technical issues during a flight requires a well-informed response. This could involve troubleshooting the problem, following established checklists, or communicating with air traffic control to report the situation. The difference between a well-managed emergency and a disastrous one often comes down to how well these protocols are observed. Flight instructors bear the responsibility of teaching these critical procedures to their students. As mentors, they must ensure their students understand not just the how, but also the why behind each step. This understanding helps students appreciate the significance of these procedures and the role they play in ensuring flight safety. But teaching these procedures is only half the battle. Instructors must also instill in their students a respect for these regulations. This respect comes from understanding that these guidelines are not just rules to be followed, but life-saving measures that have been crafted from years of aviation experience. In essence, the ability to handle emergency situations is not just about reacting quickly or correctly. It's about having the knowledge, the skills, and the level-headedness to make the right decisions under pressure. It's about understanding that every action taken in the cockpit has consequences, and that safety should always be the top priority. Being prepared for emergencies isn't just about reacting in the moment. It's about having the knowledge and the skills to handle any situation that arises. So, what makes an exceptional flight instructor? It's a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Let's look back at the indispensable qualities and competencies we've discussed in this video. First off, an excellent flight instructor must be conversant with aviation laws and regulations relevant to the country or region they operate in. This includes understanding safety regulations, pilot certifications, flight rules, and many more. A flight instructor must also be a master of safety regulations. This entails being familiar with specific aviation safety regulations such as visual flight rules, VFR, or instrument flight rules, IFR, among others. It's imperative for an instructor to know these rules like the back of their hand and be able to explain how they apply in practice. Next, understanding navigation regulations is another crucial quality. An instructor must be capable of explaining navigation rules to the students, such as procedures for cruising flights, flight route planning, flight restrictions in different geographical zones, and more. They must also demonstrate how these regulations apply in real-life scenarios, including how to obtain specific approvals or authorizations for particular types of flights. Familiarity with aerodrome and airport regulations is another key aspect. The instructor must be familiar with specific regulations for each aerodrome or airport used for training. Explaining these rules is essential for safety during airport maneuvers. Lastly, preparedness for emergency situations is an essential quality of a flight instructor. They must prepare students for emergency situations and explain the correct procedures for handling these situations. This includes teaching evacuation procedures in case of emergency landings or communication procedures in case of technical issues during a flight. Being an exceptional flight instructor is about more than just flying skills. It's about having a profound understanding of aviation laws and regulations, a mastery of safety and navigation rules, familiarity with aerodrome and airport regulations, and preparedness for emergency situations. It's about being a mentor, a guide, and a friend to the students.